Hello, my name is Erin Colburn. I'm the Free Health Advising Coordinator for the College of Health Sciences here at Boise State University. I'm excited to introduce TSgt Springfield from the Air Force, talk about the health professions scholarship that's offered through the military. And please feel free to, as you're logging in, feel free to send us any information via chat if you need to. And please feel free to ask questions when you need to do that, and we'll take it away.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Like you said, I'm TSgt Springfield. I'm with the Air Force, and we are the officer sessions recruiters that cover Boise State and most of the mountain regions. So we cover Utah, Nevada, the southern half of Idaho, and the state of Montana. So our mission, there we go. So our mission is to create and promote awareness of the Air Force Medical Service. Basically come out and talk to you guys about our different programs as far as like the scholarships and what our medical professionals do. So what is the HPSP? Have you guys heard the HPSP or the scholarship program before? No, you haven't. So what this does is, this is a scholarship program for anybody that's looking to go to either medical school, dental school, or even like a nursing school to get their APRN, or even some of the different schools for like allied health programs like physician assistant or optometrist. So the scholarship program covers a wide array of different schools for people. So when you're looking at going to medical school, or any of you guys looking at med school or dental school, medical school?
They should be predominantly med and dent today, so.
Okay, perfect. So when you're looking at going to medical school or even dental school, you gotta come up with a plan, right? You gotta figure out as far as how is this going to be paid for. So you're looking at, getting out with at least $200,000 worth of student loans on the bottom. That's right. You have to think about, how am I going to pay for my cost of living? Am I going to have a job? Is mom and dad rich? Are they going to pay my way through med school and keep gas in the car? Things like that. So you got to think about what kind of debt you're looking at the end of those 4 years, right? Even after your residence. So so again, thinking about all those things as far as living debt, how you're going to pay them off. Instead of worrying about all that, wouldn't you rather focus on your courses, your class, knowing that you don't have to worry about the finances? So that's where we come in. We want you to take our money, take the tax money that you paid already, right? All right. So how the scholarship program works is we cover 100% of the tuition, books, lab fees, all that stuff associated with the school that you have to have. Even most med schools now, and probably all the dental schools now, all require you to have medical insurance. So we're going to cover that for you too. And what you'll get on top of that is a monthly stipend. So last year's was $2,466 a month. It goes up a little bit every year. So we haven't gotten the new numbers yet for this year. So what that does is, that's money that goes into your bank account, and it allows you to not stress so much about how you're going to get gas in the car, how are you going to have money to eat. Now, I always tell people, basically $2,500 a month. That's not buying you a brand new car. You're not going out to dinner every night, but that's going to at least keep some top ramen in the cupboard, gas in the 95 Toyota Corolla, right? That's all you got to worry about for that time. So it's going to help you along with those. Now, as you see up there, it's for 10.5 months of the year. So why is it not for 12? Because during your summer break, you are going to be a commissioned officer, you're going to be a second lieutenant, and you're going to be on base doing training. So usually in the summer before you start medical school, you're going to go to officer training school in sunny Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama. So if you like humidity, you're going to love it there. Then that's usually going to be about 5.5 weeks for you. That's going to count for your 45 days of summer training. And then you're going to complete your officer training school, and then you're gonna head off to your med school to start. So we set everything up so that way it does not interfere with med school. Your officer training school is not going to interfere with any of your classes, with you getting started at med school. So we set it all up to be in the summertime when you're not actually in class. So during that time, you're getting your second lieutenant pay. And then while you're in school, while you're going to school, we do not bother you. You know, as you probably know, being in the Air National Guard, sometimes the Air Force wants to pull surprises. Oh, you need a physical fitness test. Oh, we need you to come do a drug test. We need you to do this, that, or the other. No, you're in school. That's your job for the Air Force. You're not going to deploy during that time. You're not going to come do a physical fitness test. We're not going to bother you. Your job is to focus on your schoolwork. So the other summers, while you're between classes, you're going to be taking care of some of the other training requirements, doing the running push-ups, but you're also going to learn how the Air Force practices medicine. It used to be called AMP 101, but it's something a little bit different now. And then after that, you're going to start doing some rotations, so you can see exactly what kind of specialties you might like, what kind of residencies you want to get into. Now, the final year of med school, who knows what happens? We can do residency. You have to apply for the civilian residency match in March, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Air Force, we have our own residency. Ours occurs in November of your final year of med school. So what that means is when you're an HPSP scholarship recipient, come November timeframe, you're going to get to apply for one of our residencies. And if you match to that residency, you do not have to worry about the civilian residencies down the road. Now, as you can see up here on the screen, I don't know if the people on Zoom, if you guys can see the screen too, but yes, that is right. Air Force HPSP participants match about 90% to their first choice. That was last year. This happens a lot. The reason we can do that is because we know how. Because unlike the civilian match system, we're only bringing in so many people a year, so we can keep those match rates high. All right, and then down there real quick.
It's okay, no worries.
So down there, as you can see here, our residents make about $70,000 to $80,000 a year with the Air Force.
And just so you know, that is more than a civilian makes.
Yes, usually
Civilian residency is around $30,000 to $40,000 a year.
I'm going to ask on the previous slide, it said without dependents is about 4,500. Do you know how much it is with dependents?
It depends on your housing allowance, what zip code you live in, because it's going to factor in different things. So for those that don't know, when you're getting paid by the military, you have your base pay. You also have your, what we call BAH, or your housing allowance. And that's going to vary. The amount you get varies on what zip code you live in. So if you live in New York, they're going to give you a lot more money than you would if you live in Idaho or Utah. So that's why we say that without dependents, and if you have children, you get a little bit more and things like that. So, okay. So yeah. So one thing with the residents too, if you do not match to an Air Force residency, you then have the option to go and apply for the civilian match at that point later on in March. So look, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know there's only a handful of people that usually do not make it to the Air Force match. So and then once you complete medical school with the Air Force, you get promoted from an 01 to an 03. So you become a captain. I always like to say, you're the captain now, from the movie. So and then the cool thing with the Air Force is when you have a residency that you match to, whether it's civilian or Air Force, once you graduate, you go directly to that residency. You do not have any lag time. You don't have to spend a year as a GMO or anything like that with us. So we bring you in. We are paying for you to go to med school to become a fully qualified physician, not just get you partway through. So the only caveat is if you do not match to a residency, then you can go through, do like an internship year, so you gain more experience and reapply for the residency again the year after. So it's to help you if you are lacking something where you don't get picked up. All right, so residency locations. So as you can see here, we have, there's actually 2 slides with residency locations. So, we have Travis, if anybody is actually willing to move back to California since they all emptied out to Idaho and Utah, Texas. We have Nebraska, we have Illinois, Andrews Air Force Base, Maryland, England, Florida, so you can go hang out with Florida man, play with gators and iguanas. And then Mississippi, we have a big one in Wright Patterson, Ohio. And then our other big one is in San Antonio, Texas, where we have, as you can see, we have tons of residencies there for this. So as you can see here, like she was saying, the civilian residencies, we're kind of being generous there, just so nobody says we're, but it does depend on,
Where you live.
where you live and all that. So you can make a good amount.
Make better money.
So here's a list of all the different specialties we have in the Air Force. I won't go through them all because I know a lot of people think that, oh, you guys probably only have emergency medicine and like counter med. It's like, no, we have surgeons, we have, we have radiology, urology, pediatrics, all that stuff. Aerospace medicine, internal, even dermatology. So. All right, so beyond the financials, why would anybody want to be a physician in the Air Force? So the big thing, a lot of people are, they look at this as, okay, yeah, you're going to give me money on the front end to pay for med school, help me through residency, but I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to make $500,000 every year. It's like, well, slow down. You're going to have to pay your tuition, all those fees back, and usually that can take a lot of physicians up to 10 years. It's not unheard of to take 10 years to pay back all these fees. So, and then besides that, there's a lot of other great reasons to join the Air Force as a physician. One of the big ones is you don't have to deal with insurance companies, HMOs, things like that. I'll use you for an example. When you're on your reserve guard weekend or you're on orders and you have to get something done or any kind of medical issue, you pay for it. Do you have to deal with any insurance issues with TRICARE or anything?
100% covered.
100% covered. That's right. So when you're treating people, unlike the civilian side, if somebody needs something, they're going to get it done. If they need a certain procedure, it's okay. You're talking to the patient. They need a surgery. You refer them over to to the surgery office that they're going to be working with. They walk across a base hospital there and they get sterile. There's no dealing with if the insurance company wants to pay for it or push back from anybody. It gets done, no questions. This allows you, as the physician, to practice medicine the way it ought to be, not how the insurance companies see fit. Like anybody else, you're going to get your 20-year retirement plan. You're going to get the opportunity to work in small practice settings, large practice settings. Everybody gets 30 days of vacation a year. You have the opportunity for leadership training. And then also, how many of you guys know about what kind of work hours do civilian physicians have, especially when in residency?
On residency.
Well-hour shifts.
Exactly. I was recently, my mother was in the hospital recently, so I spent about a week over at UC Davis, one of the big hospitals in California, and talking to the doctors and nurses. I mean, they're on call, they're always there. The nurses are there, good 12-hour days. So our physicians have an average of 45-hour work weeks. So you're going to actually get to be a physician and actually enjoy time with your family and not be miserable, tired, sleeping in the break room, things like that. You're actually going to have time to yourself and family time. And then also the opportunity to travel, practice medicine at different locations. I've heard of cool opportunities where Air Force physicians got to go teach different procedures and work with doctors in Germany, England, all over the world. So there's a lot of cool opportunity to work overseas and practice medicine overseas and teach others. So here we have a map of the different base locations we have in the United States. So, a lot of people, one of the cool things, a lot of people like to stick around the Rocky Mountain region. Obviously, we got that covered with a lot of bases in Colorado, Utah, Idaho, and Montana. But the map doesn't show, but we do have bases in Japan, Korea, Germany, the Azores, England, and Italy also. And then there's a bunch of other small ones that are not always known about, but like the Netherlands and things like that. We always hear about once in a while. So you do get an opportunity to travel around. So one of the other big benefits is the humanitarian missions. How many of you guys know about our humanitarian missions? I'm sure you do. Have you heard about them before, or knew that our doctors go and do that stuff? No. So we do a lot of humanitarian work, and you guys probably saw it with, or may have seen them when there was Hurricane Katrina, or a lot of the hurricanes down in the Gulf states. Air Force, Army, all of us, we're all going to respond and help give back and rescue people and treat and be a part of the recovery. So, and you've probably heard about it, but didn't even realize it, because one of the big news stories when COVID kicked off was the military hospital ships going to New York and LA, right? So that's part of the humanitarian work that we do. A lot of times we can have Air Force personnel on those hospital ships working to help out the Navy. And out of Hill Air Force Base, we also sent some of our medical professionals over to New York and different places to help with COVID efforts. And as you can see from the slide, it doesn't just stick to Americans or the United States only. We have people that go to Honduras to help with different humanitarian work. India, when there's tsunamis in the Pacific somewhere, a lot of times we can send people to go help out with recovery efforts. All right, so this covers the commitment. Now, this one here, this kind of makes it look a little bit confusing. So to simplify the commitment, I tell everybody, each year you're on scholarship is a year that you have to pay back. So, and then everybody overall, there is an overall 8-year commitment, but it's not all active duty. I'll explain that in this again here. So, and when it comes to the Air Force scholarship, and you're on the Air Force residency, it's the simple term is it's going to be whatever's longer, the med school scholarship, the med school time, or the residency time. So if you have a 4-year med school scholarship and a 3-year residency, you have a 4-year payback period. If you have a 6-year residency, then you're going to have a 6-year payback period. So, and then it'll differ if you get picked up with the civilian residency, depending on what you want to do. And the way that works is with the total 8-year commitment, if you have 4 years active duty service, you have 4 years of inactive radio reserves. And that time is if things go haywire, they have to call people back. You are one of those people that you've recently been trained by the Air Force. You know what to do, they can call you back in those 4 years. In all my time in the Air Force, I haven't seen anybody get called back up and have to come back during that time. You get to hold on to a military ID card for 4 years, and when you're done, and you don't have to worry about it. So, and then the cool thing with the Air Force residency is your time in that residency counts towards that inactive ready reserve time. So if you do if you have a 4-year residency, 4-year scholarship, med school scholarship time, when you complete those 4 active duty years, you don't have to worry about that 8 years of inactive time because of your Air Force residency time. You took it off for you. So when so the other thing, you commission as a second lieutenant while in school, like I said earlier, automatic promotion to captain or O3 once you complete medical school. Residency training counts towards your total federal service time. So now one of the big things is people always bring up and always worry about, as you can see there at the bottom, deployments. So how many of you guys have a big concern about deployments? Yeah, I know you're probably not, so a little bit, that's fair. Everybody does. And they all ask, well, if I'm in a position, what am I going to deploy? Would I be out on the front lines? Things like that. We get that question all the time. And I'll tell you what, the Air Force is gonna probably spend over $1 million getting you trained to be a physician. We're not gonna send you out on a convoy. We're not gonna send you to go kick in booze. That's crazy. We have people trained to go do that. We need you to take care of those people. So, and it also depends on if you would actually deploy or not, because it depends on your specialty, you know? We probably don't need dermatologists in a deployed location. If somebody needs a dermatologist, they're gonna come back to Germany, they're gonna come back to the United States once their deployment is done. Emergency medicine, you're probably gonna deploy. We can use you overseas in a deployed location. So, and usually in about a 4 to 6 year period, depending on your specialty, realistically, even emergency medicine, you can probably expect to deploy 2 times. You know, some of the other specialties probably won't. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. And then, like I said, this mask keeps falling down. Sorry. So yeah, it depends on your specialty as how much you're going to deploy, if you're going to deploy at all. So, and a lot of times you're going to meet people that really want to deploy, and if they're willing to go and they can take your spot, they'll go. They'll take it for you. It happens a lot. So it's one of the cool things. So now, what's it take to qualify to be in the Air Force? Might be wondering. So you have to be a U.S. citizen, because you're going to be a commissioned officer. That's the big requirement for all branches of military service. Be within 1 year of obtaining your undergrad degree. So for these scholarship programs for medical school, it's you want to be in your final year of your undergrad degree, and you want to be about a year out from starting medical school. So if you're a senior and you already started the application process with med schools, and you plan on starting next fall, you want to talk to us now. You want to get a hold of us now and get the process rolling. So if, you know, and then it's going to depend a little bit. If you're planning dental school, then you want to really start talking to us when you're in your junior year of undergrad, usually in the springtime. So if you call us in the springtime, say May, this next year, that's you're going to be your junior year, that's when you really want to start. So good moral character, can't be acting crazy out there, can't have a bunch of law violations, no major drug use. So if you have, you know, marijuana use is pretty much legal everywhere now. So the Air Force isn't going to be concerned about your use of marijuana in the past. You just can't smoke marijuana once you start the process with us. You know, again, no major law violations, no felonies, no major health problems. And so things like if you have current asthma, if you have any real major issues that could disqualify you from the Air Force. That's stuff that we discuss when you start coming into the office and talking to us a little bit more. So I know we have some of these, when we did a bunch of them on Zoom, we get people asking specific questions. And if I got this on my leg, it's like, whoa, don't show us that. You got people watching. So, you know, so that's stuff that we will discuss one-on-one. So we're, you know, little thing called HIPAA. So, so, and then for our med school students, GPA of at least a 3.2 with the MCAT score of 500, and all the subsections at 124 are involved. And then we also have what we call matrix qualified, where you can have a 3.4 GPA, a 504 MCAT score, that automatically qualifies you for selection. So what that means is you don't have to put as much paperwork together for your application package. You submit it, and then a couple weeks later they go, yep, you got it, congrats, you're on the scholarship program. Where if you have the 3.2 or 500 MCAT, then you have to get a few more documents for your board application, and you have to wait for the board. So, but usually it's, unless something crazy happens when it comes to the med school scholarships, you're going to get picked up for it. So we always tell people, when you're going through the process for it, you know, it's not one of these, well, if I get it, maybe it's definitely expect to get it. Now, if you're going for dental school, it's a lot more competitive just because we don't have that many spots for it. So it's going to be based on the GPA and your DAX score. Usually, I don't have the numbers in front of me. So if you're going to,
I think it's a 19 on the dot.
Yeah, it depends on you. So like 4-year scholarship, you can have a 19 gap with a 3.6 GPA or a 20 gap with a 3.4 GPA. It'll vary depending on 3-year and 2-year scholarships. All right, so
So you mentioned something here, start the application before you get an acceptance letter.
yes,
So apply to your medical schools or your dental schools and be working with the recruiting office and applying at the same time. Because then those two things will kind of run up on each other. In other words, they can get you all the way forward to the board. And then once you get your acceptance letter, then they can push you through the board.
yes.
So the earlier you start talking to folks like the sergeant, the better off you are.
Right. So if you, like I said, if you're planning on starting next fall, reach out to us now. Because these scholarships, it's not like, well, how do I know if I get it? It's what increases my chances. When it comes to med school, scholarships, we're asked all the time. What gives me the best chance? Starting early will give you by far the best chance. Starting early, if you have a subsection at like 123, we can run an exception of policy, still try to get you in and give you a scholarship. If you start the process, like if somebody's planning on starting med school in the fall and they reach out to us in May, it's sorry, you missed the boat. We can probably get you a 3-year scholarship and give us a call back in a couple months. So starting early always helps. You'd rather find out that you called us, talked to us 2 years ahead of time too early, and we tell you to call us around this time for yourself, for your situation. Okay, cool. And call us then. You don't want to miss the boat for these scholarships. All right. So here's what do you call an individual that saves a life? A hero. What do you call an individual that saves a hero's life? An Air Force physician. So they're like that. All right, so now it's time for questions. Well, I know I've been kind of looking at you guys here in the room, but we'll give some of the Zoom folks a chance if there's anything.
There's nobody in the room.
Oh, no, okay. All right.
So, and if you don't ask any questions, I will, because I know what questions are typically asked. So but ask some questions.
Yeah. Go for it.
So when you first start, like what classes do you have to take, basic training?
So the question is, what kinds of training or courses do you have to take to get started?
To get started, you have to, it doesn't matter what courses. When you start with us, the first thing you're going to do is officer training school. And depending on when you get accepted and all that, so if you do everything early in time with, like we tell you, then you're looking at starting officer training school like the June, May timeframe before you actually start med school. And that's 5.5 weeks again down in Alabama, and that's going to be a little bit of running, a little bit of some push-ups, some physical exercise, getting you all that a little bit, but not nearly as bad as actual basic training. So it's definitely a lot of damage. And the main purpose of that is not to just yell at you. And the main purpose of officer training school is to get you to be prepared as a leader, to give you that leadership experience. A lot of what gets people is not the physical fitness stuff, it's the coursework, the studies of officer training school, because they want to get you ready to be a leader in the United States Air Force in 5.5 weeks. So they're gonna push you to be outside your comfort zone. So it's not just to run around and get yelled at, it's how to operate outside your comfort zone. How do you handle pressure, stress? If something doesn't go right, do you know what to do? Are you confident enough in your abilities yourself to say, okay, we have this issue, things went horribly wrong, let's try this and just run with it, because we don't have time to think to ask questions or call somebody else to tell us what to do. You gotta know how to think on your feet. So that's the big purpose of officer training school.
And then you go to medical school, and it's whatever medical school is asking you to do, and then they're not going to bug you until you're done.
Yeah. And yes, you can go to, and this scholarship covers any medical school in the United States. So if you decide to go to Icon down the street, or you decide to go to Harvard or somewhere super expensive back east, we're gonna cover it in the United States or Puerto Rico. We just will not cover any schools in like Germany or overseas.
Great question, though. Thank you. Others?
Mine are like super specific to my car enlisted, so
Okay.
they're not. That has to be like conditional research, stuff like that a lot.
We can, and if there's anybody that's watches the video later or on Zoom and is in the same situation in your prior service, we can do that. There's the conditional release that we can work. We just have to get a couple records, things like that. We deal with it more often than probably realize, so it's.
You just might need to do a little bit more of a conversation earlier.
Oh,
Then-
I contacted you guys like 3 years before.
But you come earlier in that situation so that they can walk you through that steps too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but yeah, when it comes to that, it's super easy because all you do, there's a form that they fill out, you take it to your unit, they sign off, and then we're good to go. So we deal with that all the time.
You know, so by the time I go, I'll have 4 years enlisted.
Mhm.
And so I would call them the OE, is that correct?
Right, you would be, the OE one.
Mhm.
And then, and the cool thing is, a lot of times with, when it comes to medical fields, if you are currently in the Guard or Reserve for any branch, and you would understand this, but what we consider worldwide qualified, you do not have to go through the MEPS process. We can actually pull we call it a 422, and we pull their medical data, send it up, and they don't have to go to MEPS again. Which MEPS, for those of you that don't know, is the medical process where it's the entrance processing station where you go through, they do a physical exam to make sure you're healthy and qualified for military service. It is probably one of the worst parts about the recruiting process. Nobody has fun. It's a cold room, and so but it's one of those that takes a day, and you get done and qualified, and you don't have to do it again.
and there's a site here, so it's just down the road.
Yeah.
It's the most dreadful day in your life. So being in the Guard, how would I be able to do that where I wouldn't have to do the next thing? Because I already have all my waivers and everything.
You still have to do your background checks and all of that stuff. Over.
So is that even if I have my clearance, my security clearance? and all that stuff?
You would give us the documents, because we have to run your background clearance again.
Mm.
A lot of times, if the stuff is still good, we just pull the documents from your unit, you give us the documents from the current unit, and we send it up to the folks on our side, and they double check everything and make sure everything's good, so you won't have to go back through the next process, or you won't have to reaccomplish a full security clearance.
Okay, so it'll just be easier basically, right?
Yes, they'll be able to document, pull the data over, so it's, like I said, we do it all the time, and it's really simple. We actually had an audiologist, she was in the Army and wanted to come over to the Air Force, and we were able to get her transferred over really fast because she had everything, and it was a matter of, but here's all my documents, I get set it up, yeah, everything's good, and she got selected, and she's, within 6 months in the Air Force as an Air Force captain. So, yeah, choose. Do you have any questions? I kind of vibe there.
I was just thinking about like the time commitment and how that would, be and what it looks like.
Okay, so again, the time commitment, it really depends on your residency. So say you do a 4-year medical school scholarship, and say you go into, what's that? Okay, so you'd be looking at like a 3-year residency. So with that, you would have 4 years active duty service commitment. So that's that time would start after your residency. So say you go through, you do 4 years med school, you do 3 years of the Air Force residency. Those 3 years will count towards the inactive time. Remember that 8-year thing I was talking about? So that'll take off 3 of the inactive years. Then you would be able to do your 4 years of active duty service. Then you would have 1 year of inactive service after that to complete the 8 years. And if you ever decide to recommission and stay in the Air Force longer, then, after that first year, like say you do another 4-year commitment after your first, then after that 5th year of active duty time, you don't have to worry about that active reserve time. So that's how it works. So like if you decided, I want to go surgery instead, you have a 6-year active duty, a 6-year residency, then you have a 6-year active duty.
Other questions? Yeah.
What is the,
What is the MCAT? I can answer that.
Oh, yeah.
The MCAT is the medical college admissions test. It is the test that you have to take to be able to apply to medical schools. It's composed of biology, chemistry, physics, organic chemistry, and behavioral sciences. And when you work with your academic advisor, we will make sure that you are completing the content here at Boise State University that often is the prerequisite courses to be able to go to medical school. And then we actually support you in studying for that exam. Most students take that exam as close to their application cycle as possible because it's only good for 3 years. You can take it multiple times. That's a good question. Does the Air Force use the highest score?
The most recent.
Most recent. So that's the thing, you want to try and be successful in taking it and making sure that you, if you're going to take it more than once, that your most recent is your best. Doesn't always happen that way. So typically, if someone was graduating on a 4-year plan and didn't want to have a gap in between their education, they would take their MCAT and apply to medical schools at the end of their junior year, going into their senior year, hopefully get into medical school and start. We do have quite a few students who opt to graduate with their bachelor's degree, take their MCAT after that and apply. They're still eligible for this program because they have their bachelor's degree earned. There is an age limit on this. I
Yes.
think it's 32.
I want to say they have to be, I think it's 36 today. I'd have to look again, to be honest, before entering. And it depends on when you start the scholarship or finish the scholarship program. So I have to double check because it's kind of at a weird time for this one.
Yeah.
I cannot think of it right now. My apologies.
Okay. So what my advice would be, figure out what schools you want to go to and apply to so you know what prerequisites, work with your academic advisor to build that schedule. That'll help you determine when you're going to take it, which will determine when you're possibly going to apply and then would apply to this program if you're interested in pursuing it as a scholarship. Does that answer your question?
And one thing I know, and I believe there was a bit of an issue this past year because of the COVID stuff, is if you don't take the MCAT, but you still get accepted to like a certain medical school that doesn't require it, we can still work with you on it. You can still put a package together as long as you have an acceptance letter to that school.
Yeah.
So that way you know that you didn't have to take the MCAT, but you are going to school, so we can.
There were a handful of schools that opted not to require the MCAT this year and last year. That's a crazy risk to take, just so y'all know. But some students have chosen to only apply to those schools. But then you can't take it until you either get accepted or not, and that might change next year. They might go back to saying that it's a requirement. And I would say more schools this year required it because now it was more available. So, because there's only specific dates out of the year that you can take the MCAT. And during COVID, they had to close the testing centers. And so they couldn't offer it. And so many of the schools opted to waive it just for COVID year. And then this year, some of the schools opted to keep that policy just to get through the cycle. Because there are locations that it's limited on how they can take it because they had to have social distancing in the testing centers. So they couldn't offer as many computers to administer the test.
Oh, you doing computer now?
Oh, yes. Yep. And just so you know, the MCAT is 7.5 hours long. So it does take a full day for you to do. They're crazily going to offer a couple of secondary testing times in July. So they're going to offer like an 8 a.m. test and a 5 p.m. test. So like, you won't get out of there until like 11. So it's like, I don't think I'd want that.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I graduate next fall,
okay.
so once I get like, I have to apply for that cycle year.
So if you have all of the content completed to be able to take your test, you could be a summer of 2022 cycle. If you're not ready, in other words, you're going to be finishing up the requirements for the MCAT to be successful, and you're going to take your test spring of 2023, you're going to apply summer of 2023. And so if you want, you can set up an appointment with me, and we can figure out where you are and what that means, to help you figure out your timing for everything.
To figure out like what the basic training, when it would be, and
Yep, so when are you graduating, but when are you actually applying is the question, and it's all based on what you completed in course and what is going to be the best situation for you for studying for the MCAT. Just because you took all the courses doesn't mean you have the time to sit down and study for the MCAT and get a really good score. So you can get a 500 and not have 124 in each of the subject areas. And you have to have both. At least a 500 and 124 in each of the subject areas in their score. Does that make sense? So an advising appointment might be a good idea for you. Yeah. So if you email me, I'll send you my link and you can set up an appointment. Anything else?
So when should I start my conditional release? Because I know I've been told that should be started even before I start applying. And all that other stuff.
You would start that once you've sat down and talked to us to get the initial steps started. So when do you plan on
So I
graduating?
graduated spring of 23. So we will probably do my MCAT in May of 23
Okay,
and then apply for medical.
So you're going to do it after you graduate.
you would,
Right after, like,
Okay.
about the same
okay,
time,
so you would,
Probably May or June.
May or June, and then you apply for medical like right after. Or should
You'd
you
play the
before
same,
that?
you're gonna do it at the same time. It's gonna be fun, promise. We're gonna set you up in 22 to 23. We're gonna prep everything. So all you'll have to do is study, fill out all the paperwork, take care of all of the stuff that you need to take care of. So his question is if he's graduating and applying in 23, when would he need to do his conditional?
so if you graduate, apply 20, if you,
So it's 24 start.
so for 24 start, okay, so you would want to
Wait,
wait.
wouldn't it be all 23 today?
Nope, it's a year in advance application.
So, yeah, if you plan on starting fall of 24, yeah, you'd be applying.
So what if I want to start following?
If you want to start fall 23, you're applying next summer. But do you have OChem finished?
Half of it, wait. No, half of it, right?
See, that's the issue is, do you want to take a test that you don't have all the information for?
Nope.
Thank you. Say that again. Do you want to take a test without all the information?
Absolutely not.
Thank you. Should we do it again? Sorry.
Okay, so because of where my OPEM's at, that's why I have to wait.
OChem and biochemistry is on the test.
Yeah.
So is physics and general bio.
Okay, so that's why I would, okay, so I'd apply in May, June, and then go into.
Following year. So if you apply in 2023, you'd be in entrance E24. So when would he need to do his conditional?
He would start that in the fall of 23.
Okay.
He would start with us. And like I said before, the conditional release is pretty easy with, I don't know how I heard Air God is, I'm trying to remember with, because I've dealt with people in the, I think he was there.
As long as I get them to do it, I'll do it.
Yeah, they're pretty good about quick turnaround with it, so.
Keep out of there.
So an appointment with him would probably be a good idea,
Yeah.
just to make sure that you can visually see it. Because I'm a visual thinker, and so talking about these dates, it kind of looks
Yeah.
pretty
I like
easy.
that.
Yeah,
But when you take what planning you've done with Shannon and you put it out there, then you could see how it all kind of comes together. So that would be what I would suggest. Take your plan that she made.
I called you guys, you called us in a year.
yeah, we do that. So, but that's what you want to call us, because we do say that a lot. And a lot of times it is, okay, yeah, because we have people in high school, I'm gonna go to med school one day, can I start now? Slow down, let's start your undergrad, but Yeah, when you're usually a year out, we'll tell you when to call, and we'll save your information a lot of times. We ask you kind of rundown of, okay, give me your, like, make sure you're at least, should be qualified. We'll save it in our system. We'll set it to remind us to give you a call, like around that same time. So if you plan on having, being, in seat in med school, day one, say the fall of 24, you would talk to us and start that conditional release fall of 23.
Mhm. And what I would say too is that they're not gonna be strangers. We did have a couple years. That's okay.
That was before I got out here though.
I know, so we try every semester, but at least once a year. So you'll see them we'll make sure that they're here every year for them at the most, at the least. At the most, you'll see them twice. So, does that answer your question? Again, I think you might need an appointment with
wanna
them.
reach out to us.
Yes, but I want to see it, even if it's
Sure.
like,
So-
don't do it right now, I just want to see the timeline.
So
Absolutely.
if you have your school picked out and you've met with Shannon and figured out a plan,
Which is,
then you can take that to them.
Yeah.
Not during registration, please. We are crying our tears out when we are in 30-minute appointments. We have time to make a plan in 30 minutes. So don't ask us to do it right now,
Already done.
okay? But you can ask us to do it after registration. All right, I think you have a couple more slides here real quick. When in doubt, ask.
A goal without a plan is only a wish. So these are our other recruiters that I work with. So write this down. I've also got cards that you can grab my contact information on.
And I'll send them the slides. too.
Okay, perfect. And so the way we do the way we do our recruiting process has changed a little bit. So we have Sergeant Zwiebel and Sergeant Green. They're the main ones that start the process with people right now. And it changes all the time. Sometimes they're busy and I'll jump in and do the initial contact stuff and work with somebody. And so they're the ones that are going to sit down, go over the qualifications, make sure you're tentatively qualified, get you, talk to you about the Air Force, see if it is going to be a good fit for you. And then if it is, they're going to move you on to what we call the officer candidate coordinators. And those are the people that get your applications built and get your package to the board. And if you get selected, that's when you get to work with me again. And we take care of all your commissioning paperwork and actually give you in and get you registered with the Air Force Institute of Technology and the reserves and all that.
So
So
it's kind of cool to commission too. So, because usually you guys let them pick a spot where they would like to commission. And
yeah.
we like to come to those things when we're not in the middle of COVID.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun for us. So, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.